exaggerating. Anyway, okay. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Sergey. Thank you for the lovely comment, Sean. Yeah, she's okay. So, yeah, Mark Lawrence has written some of my favourite books. The book that wouldn't burn starts his library trilogy, which is kind of like a fantasy about a magical mystery library. But the book that brought me to Mark Lawrence is incredibly grimdark. It's called Prince of Thorns, and yeah, it's about a particularly horrible prince. I'm sure you Warhammer people would love it. So that was a short story that Mark Lawrence wrote, and the longest book was A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. My average book length in 2024 was 329 pages. There was a year when I read over 100 books, and the average book length was a lot shorter because I'd read a lot of comics that year, and Goodreads counts comics as books, which is a yay. So the most shelved, the most popular book that I read was Where the Crawdads Sing. 5,419,875 people read that. The least shelved is Uncharted Worlds. It's a system. It's a gaming system powered by the apocalypse game. It's not gaming, yeah. And it's basically like, I guess it's kind of like, I really, really want to play Shadowrun. So I don't think it's very much like Shadowrun, but it was a fun game to play. The last time I played it was with my ex, and we broke up in the middle of the campaign, so I never completed the campaign. Oh, sad story, but I did finally read the book. My average rating for 2024 was 4.4 stars. I've actually stopped doing ratings since I started reviewing books online, because I don't think it's fair. And since I am also a writer and loads of my friends create games, and I see how reviews impact them, unless they're like mega positive, I don't think there's any help with me reviewing a book and going, meh, it was okay. Like, yeah. So I kind of stopped reviewing too much, and I just was like, okay, let's mark this down and move on. Someone's written, my aunt was a librarian and you remind me so much of her. Oh, Will, you'll have to send a picture of her to me somehow. She passed away about a year ago, and it's been a comfort to listen to your Warhammer journey. I have to go, but wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Will. Wow, that's so sweet. Tyrone and Lintu, hello, great to see you. Remember, body heals when at rest, then to books. Yeah, I know. I'm going to try and not walk around much today, tomorrow, and Friday, and just stay in my flat and ice my leg every hour. I'm icing for 10-15 minutes. So thank you. Highest rated on Goodreads, Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes. So this is really close to my heart because obviously Terry Pratchett had dementia. I'm trying to figure out how to look after my mum. And yeah, I did write a review. I knew the ending of this would be tough, and it was, and I cried. A fascinating insight into the life and work of an author I've loved since I can read. And Terry Pratchett was one of the first books that my dad introduced me to when we were allowed to go and look at the sci-fi in the library. So we'll always love Terry. My first review of the year. I remember this book. Wow, what a wonderful book to begin 2024. This book is so good I could have married it. It gave me the same happy feelings as when I discovered Pern for the first time as a small. I loved it so much. If you only read one book this year, let it be this. Wow, that's high praise from me. And for those of you that don't know Pern, there's a whole series of books around the dragon riders of Pern. And it's about this planet. It's a bit sci-fi, it's a bit fantasy. It's classic. It's very classic. Nowadays, it has got a few themes that are like a bit disturbing and, not of this generation, but what a magical place Pern was. Okay, my 2024 books. The Blue Book of Nebo. I would describe this as kind of, I guess if anyone's read Raymond Briggs' When the Wind Blows, it's a kind of end of days. There's been a nuclear event, and it's about, two people surviving in Wales. It's really beautifully written, and it was kind of very gentle for, a book about the end of the world. Really loved it. I read The Adventure Zone, which is a comic book, and many of you may have watched or listened to that as a podcast. Now, this was one of our Mirror Manga Book Club books, Robert A. Heinlein, Starship Troopers. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was suggested by our well inspector librarian, Gary Pilkington, who is missing from the chat today, but I hope watches this back. And this was so great to read. Let's get some details. Yeah, it was first published in 1959 and it won a Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1960. Quite right too. I don't think I reviewed this. I didn't rate or review, but this book is great. It has so many ideas that just the basis of a lot of sci-fi stuff is here. Of course, I watched the film Starship Troopers. Absolutely insanity. Very, very cheesy film, kind of in a form of a satire. And this book, Starship Troopers, felt very much to me like a satire of all these young men being forced to sign up. And there's a lot of philosophizing in this book. It was great. We really enjoyed it in the book club. Alexandre says, I like rating books because sometimes I pick up a series 2 or 3 years down the road and don't remember if I enjoyed the previous book, and it's a nice surprise. Yeah, that is good. Dark Souls 2. How many did we read this year? I think in the book club we read 11 or 12. I don't know how much we've read as a collective. Aztec, in 2024, I've listened to 11 Terry Pratchett Discworld books, one a month, and I'm now halfway through Hogfather. Perfect, in time for Christmas. Thanks for the recommendation, Mira. Yes, Starship Troopers, I can recommend. Starstrip, I have no idea. Nigel said, I only read 3 Pratchetts this year. I'm slipping. You've still got time, Nigel. You could get a couple in. Some Desperate Glory. So earlier in the year, I basically joined... I'm losing my mind. I joined the British Fantasy Society, was it? In order that I could read and vote on the books that go for awards. And this is one of the books that was a nominee. I might have even won. Sorry, I should have done some research on this, shouldn't I? This was a really interesting book that starts out on a space station. Another, something's happened to the Earth. I always worry about like spaceship stuff, but this was really, really clever. I really, really enjoyed it. And yes, it's a queer read as well. Really beautifully written, great world building. Can recommend. And then yes, this was one of my favorite books of the year, A Day of Fallen Night. And it's basically, I guess, hello Mira and dragon riding. It's like a dragon riding theme. And yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but there's some really beautiful relationships throughout. There's some gorgeous world building stuff. So many beautiful descriptions. Samantha Shannon can write. I love it. I mean, sometimes I just read these books and I'm in absolute awe. I'm like, how do you sculpt the words? Good. You words so good. Ben Aranovich. I always fall for this. I always fall for this. I read loads and loads and loads of the Rivers of London series, of which I'm sure there are about 12, 13. There have been comics, all kinds of things. Loads of stuff. Look, all these things. But the reason I read is, I guess it feels very serialized fiction. It's not like a trilogy. It's like an ongoing, and I guess it's like an arcane police procedural, but the big bad always seems to evade. It gives very much Next Time Gadget vibes to me, if people understand what that means. There's never a big satiating, yes, this is a nice tidy ending. And I guess that reflects life, especially in London. But because I read a lot of books for escapism, I would just love a really nice tidy ending. Martha Wells' System Collapse. If you have not met Murderbot yet, please meet Murderbot. Murderbot is a sentient android robot, and it's told from their perspective, and they're dry, and there's like a wry sense of humor about it. It's a really unique perspective. There are 7 primary works. Yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you haven't read this, pick up All Systems Red, which is number 1. And yeah, highly, highly recommend. I would love to chat to this author. Martha Wells has written a lot of literature that is very much loved in the fantasy and sci-fi community. Did I write a review? My review. I love Murderbot so much. This book felt different as our dear Secbot, that's the name of the robot, is processing, redacted. See, I was talking like they do in the book. And all the interpersonal relationships are at peak processing, as well as the wonderfully dreamy, slow motion bullet time sections of split-second decisions in the tense action scenes. Wow, that's pretty horrific writing. Apologies. Our Secbot is processing all the interpersonal relationships are at peak processing, as well as the wonderful... Yeah, that's a terrible sentence. Apologies. They're making an Apple series, and I hope it will be good, but these books just can't be surpassed. I love you, Murderbot. Don't go changing from changing. This series is not allowed to end. Newsflash, I think it has ended, but I love it, love it. So then we have the Mark Lawrence short story, and I get a lot of my books from the library. As many of you know, I support lots and lots of libraries. I'm in a lot of online libraries up and down the country. So if I've ever had a boyfriend in Suffolk or, you know, a different county, I'll make sure I get a library card and keep that, whether the boyfriend comes or goes. And I believe that Mark Lawrence may have shared this for free. It's just a really beautiful, gentle little story about love. Yeah, it's a really short story and very, very impactful. I won't spoil it for you. Delicate, yeah. Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes, we've talked about. Sometimes I don't know why a book ends up in my reading. I couldn't tell you how or why I came to read Winter Girls, but it was really beautiful writing, about, you know, basically eating disorders, and Leah, who is kind of dealing with this, and it's not something I've thought about a lot, but it was a really beautiful, interesting perspective. And yeah, Winter kind of felt like, I don't think I wrote a review, Winter kind of felt like part of the character. Don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So one of my favorite authors, Tamora Pierce, she liked it. Another gut-wrencher story. So Tamora Pierce wrote one of the books that we read in book club. I'm holding it up. Alana, the First Adventure. Another gut-wrencher from Laurie Hulse Anderson, of 2 friends determined to starve themselves to the ideal weight, which looks more and more like death. It's powerful, it's believable, and it will give you the chills. You'll never forget it. And yeah, it's really powerful, very emotional. Yeah, I don't know how I got to that subject matter. Also, I wonder if I can see a review here. This is one of my old school teachers. I bought this because it was given out on the Good Reads night. As the blurb says accurately, it's a disturbing novel. It makes us think about families and friendships. It explores depression with its accompanying morbid fantasies and lack of self-esteem. Do we know about depression on this channel? Yes, we do. She reads it to help her deal with her SEND students. She was such a great teacher. Who are in the grip of this terrible disease, and to help me help their parents. It more than delivered, and I bought a copy for the school and have it passed it to the head and other heads of year to give them insight. I'm going to give it to close friends of these anorexic girls to help them cope with the impossible situation of trying to help a friend who's on a destructive collision course, to make them realise it's not their fault. She was such a good teacher. Why doesn't it surprise me she's still being an amazing teacher? Let's have a look in the chat. Sadly, the book is not so much satire, but yeah, I think that's probably about Starship Troopers, and Caprice has commented that. I felt that there was a lot of satire in I felt the satire was in the whole kind of expectation of signing up and how it sucked young recruits into the army, and then the reality was crazy and you saw the impact of that. And then while they were going after the bugs, you know, it was clear that that was like a convoluted mess. And I also felt the other satire came from all the different lectures that the characters had to attend. So I found a lot of satire in that book. Caprice says, Nation was the only Pratchett I've read this year. I need to put that right in 2025. Historitor Gimaldus, Starship Troopers has a lot of Warhammer worlds. The Flamers in there, they have drop pods, power armor. They do. And Caprice says, Kyle Calgren did a great set of videos about it. And Heinlein for Brows Held High. And Caprice is also going to read Murderbot. Great, I approve of that. All Systems Red is free and audible, just added to my library. Oh yay, Robbie, I hope you love it. Dom Elfkicker, hello, welcome to the chat. My favourite robot is Mr. Crane from the Neil Asher novels. Not Fraser Crane from Seattle's #1 radio station. Oh, Historitor just finished the 3rd Alana book. So yes, we're recommending Tamora Pierce as an author. Dom says, use the luck potion, then go west. Not today, Dom, not today, but probably on Sunday. So that brings us to the first of the Warhammer novels in 2024, Titanicus. As you all know, I'm incredibly proud of my songs that I write for the Warhammer reviews that I do. So I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to see if I can play you my Titanicus song. It's 28 seconds, so if you don't hear something now, just let me know in the chat and we'll fix it. Oh no. Okay, that's not what I wanted you to hear. Did you hear that though? If you heard it, we're good. Let's see, this is the one I want you to hear. Did you read Titanicus about the robots that fight? Dan is here to take us back and tell us what was that like. I mean, that's how you know good literature, right? When it can provoke creativity itself. Fantastic. So, yeah, let me share our books again. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, I'm a big fan of Titans in the Warhammer world, mostly because they're big and they look like a lot easier to paint than smaller minis. I don't plan on ever buying one. We did have a Titanicus one, but they're about £1,300. I'd probably just drop it as soon as I completed it. But yeah, absolutely adore Titanicus. Really great interview with Dan. If you enjoyed Titanicus, you can also watch the Titanicus interview, and obviously Ian and I both spoke about it. Also, when I was working with Games Therapy UK in Salute of this year, we were opposite the Titan Club owners, the Titan Owners Club. So I was literally standing across the way from like 25, 30 amazing Titans. So that was a great day at Salute convention. Next book is, oh my gosh, The Dark Forest. Gosh, what to say about this? What to say? I really hate this series of books. I wanted to like it so much. Look at this. This is bad. I shouldn't have rated it. Why did I do that? I feel naughty. I really wanted to love The Three-Body Problem, not least because when I told people that I like sci-fi, they would recommend this book to me, and then I read it, and it's so hard sci-fi. It was too much for me. I didn't understand a freaking word, if I'm honest. It was so complex, and it just went over my head. And then I watched the UK version. The UK, there's like a English speaking language version. I watched another language version of it. Still didn't get it. Still didn't cling to it. I felt, yeah, maybe the ideas were too big for my weedy noggin. But yeah. Did anybody else read the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogies? Because maybe I just need someone to do a video of it, like I do videos of Warhammer, to kind of help me understand. Oh, look, I wrote a review. I finished this book this afternoon and my brain is still dribbling out of my ear. Accurate. I never got any of that brain back. I like the characters and concept, but I just couldn't stay engaged. Look how badly I've written this. You can tell I'm like completely baffed after reading it. I finished this book this afternoon. My brain is still dribbling out of my ear. I like the characters and concept, but I just couldn't stay engaged with all the scientific modelling and theoretical discussions. A book that will be enjoyed by those with more analytical minds most thoroughly. I don't think I need to tweet about my changing my reviews, to be quite frank, but thank you all for witnessing me. Realising I write terribly badly in my reviews. Dom says, I love your songs, but sometimes the simple approach can be the most effective. Anyone who's heard the Peter Dinklage song will know what I mean. Steve, good bit about having the Titanicus book itself be absolutely massive. Capri says, things start getting very real there. I love Three Body, but can see why it might be your thing. Absolutely. It's just not a mirror-shaped book. And that's a mirror body problem. Way. Will says, if your planet is moving between different stars, you are dead. The energies associated will kill anything a few times over. Well, there you go. That makes me feel a lot better. Alexandra, it lacked unicorns. I think you'll find I haven't read any books with unicorns in them this year. Sergey, I read the first book and got the main concept behind it. I didn't really like it as a book. And it's all about what we all like, and we're all individuals as well. The next book was about the future by Naomi Alderman, and it kind of starts with, oh no, the world is ending, and it's ending at a conference of extremely mega rich Elon Musk types, and they're all hustled off to a bunker and escape the apocalypse, and then it's about the future. Very interesting book. I don't want to spoil it, but I did enjoy this. I think Naomi Alderton's written the book about the power, which lots of people have recommended to me, but I'm very scared of reading it because I think it's about people who can cause pain and death. And as you all know, I'm not good at reading books where a lot of pain is inflicted. R.I.P. me and my Warhammer career. So that's on that. But yeah, can recommend The Future. Relationship books. I recommend this to everybody, men and women. It's called Women Who Love Too Much When You Keep Wishing and Hoping He'll Change. I didn't write a review, but I did give it 5 stars. The reason this book is so good is because I'm at a grand old age of like way past my 40th, and I would keep being in relationships that would keep kind of ending for the same reasons, and I was always worried and anxious in them. And it really kind of reveals why you do that, why you put too much in. And there was some really interesting stuff like, you know, if you're an anxious kind of person and you've grown up in a certain way with certain parents, you will apologize. Even if something is not your fault, you'll go out of your way to say sorry. You'll go out of your way to make sure people around you are happy and feeling they are content, even if you're not, because that was when you were little. That was like a safety net for you, making sure the people around you were like not going to kick off. So yeah, I really recommend this. Even if you're not a woman, and even if you don't love too much, I thought it was really interesting psychology. Little bit dated. It is published in the 80s, but lots and lots of like stories and anecdotes, which are fantastic. So yeah, very much recommend. The Wilderness by Samantha Harvey. Yes. I mean, I do try and read books around Alzheimer's. Oof, this was beautifully written but rough. I'm sure that's why I don't think I'll have written anything about this, but yeah, it was a tough read, but I guess I try and read literature or fiction. I have read some non-fiction on the experience of people who are suffering, not suffering, who have Alzheimer's. And I worry sometimes that it's used as like a timey-wimey mechanism, like the character with Alzheimer's can be used like as a plot device. And I feel like, anyway, this was very interesting to read. It was difficult and I did cry a little bit. I cry all the time anyway. It reminds me of when I was watching the True Detective series on TV and they had a character with Alzheimer's. Um, Anywho, yes, The Wilderness by Samantha Harvey. Uh, the Big Swiss. Now, this is really interesting. I was so lucky. I was gifted a bibliotherapy reading, which is where I was given the gift. It's like a paid service where you sit down with somebody and they spend an hour with you talking about the books that you like, what's going on in your life, what you like to read, and then they give you a book prescription. And they prescribe books to you that they think you would enjoy to read. And I was prescribed The Big Swiss, and there was lots of stuff in there about therapy and like, yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, and I don't think I would have chosen this for myself. Um, it was basically about the main character. Would you transcribe therapy sessions, and like she was also having affairs with people, lots of relational stuff. Left me very, very, very uncomfortable. Just with there's lots of tension. There was like some looming threat of a dangerous man in the background, and yeah, it was a lot. So it was interesting. I wonder why they prescribed that book for me. And then we're back to our Warhammer stable with the lovely, lovely Valdor. And I love reading about the end days of Unification just before everything kicks off. And this was really great. I learned so much about Warhammer. I learned about the Thunder Warriors. I learned about a lady whose surname was Astartes, who was kind of like mum of baby Primarchs. And of course, Valdor. Really, really lovely. And yeah, of course, a Custodes book. I think I read this after it kicked off about there being female Custodes and the whole internet being very upset about that. But yeah, and obviously I did also get to speak to the fantastic, the wonderful and the amazing Chris Ray. And of course I got to write a theme song. Oh, Robbie has to go. Oh, good night, Robbie. We'll see you Sunday. Have a good rest. Thank you so much for all the gifts. Bless, Robbie has to get up so early and we're talking like, I don't know, 5 a.m. or something. So do we have my Valor Song? Let's have a listen to this. I'll try and turn the volume down up here so it doesn't blow everyone's ears off. All these songs are. The melody's always nicked from the amazing Louis Humanoid, who's a fantastic composer. But we had a lovely time together and had some really nice chats about Valdor. And, you know, anything close to the Emperor, you don't get much closer to the Emperor than bloomin' Valdor, do you? So that was good. So lovely to have Robbie here. So he saw the box opening. Hello, Lucka W3. Welcome to the... Lucka got here through a YouTube recommendation, which is bonkers. I should explain the starter goal thing. YouTube started putting the starter goal thing to try and encourage people to ping money at you through the chat. That's a new thing. Dom likes Michael Marshall Smith novels for sci-fi with psychological, spiritual undertones. Steve strongly relates to flapping around trying to keep people happy. Added that one to my list. Steve, if you read it, we need to discuss it. Add it to your list. Love Robbie. I have to find something to gift back to Robbie. Steve loved Valdor. Really interesting to be close to the heart of the Imperium like that. Caprice says reread Valdor this year because I reread Valdor this year because you were doing it. A fantastically fun one. We need more unification era books and a game. Yes, we do. Will says Candawire is the best protagonist in Warhammer. A look at what could have been if the Empire was rules based. Will, where were you when I was interviewing Ray to use that? Sergei, Valdor is one of the more important books for the development of the lore, I think. Historia Jamalda's favourite Warhammer book so far? Ooh. I might be able to give you a favourite Warhammer book for the year at the end of this. Let's see. Tim Winton, The Shepherd's Hut. This was another recommendation from the bibliotherapist. This was tough. This was really, really, really hard to read. It was so brutal. Oh my crikey. It's so hard. The Shepherd's Hut is a story of an angry adolescent. He believes the world is against him, so he takes a stand against the world. Yeah, I would not recommend it. I don't know why she recommended it to me. I absolutely hated it. Yeah, lots of violence, very hopeless, harsh, savage conditions of the Australian outback. Heartbreakingly sad. Do not recommend for me, but plenty of probably grimdark people would love it. The next, Horus Heresy, yay, we're back in the Warhammer. Battle for the Abyss, which I just remember as being, you know, a very difficult conversation with Ian, who was so grumpy when we read it. And then Ian reminded me many times that Ben Counter just did not want to chat at all about the book, which is fair enough. No, the authors don't have to talk to me. But it was interesting because this felt like the first space battle that we come across in the Heresy. And I found it really interesting from that aspect. There was some skullduggery around the spaceships. It was interesting. This was my first introduction to the Thousand Suns, really. And boy, yeah, it meshes so differently having read more Thousand Sun stuff and obviously a lot more Space Wolf stuff since then. Who's read this? James Swallow's read this. Yay! Of course. 2-star review, 5-star review, 3-star review. And these were all made, yeah, fairly recently. So yeah, I know Battle for the Abyss is a Marmite book. Dom says, do an end of year 40k book review. Dom says, Battle for the Abyss, Saturday morning cartoon stuff. Sean, the book prescriber doesn't sound like they were in sync with you. I agree. I wonder what I was talking about in that session. Probably my mum and Alzheimer's. I don't know. I think sometimes when you're going to someone who works in literature and lives in literature and part of their job is to prescribe for your condition, I guess there are not many fantasy novels specific or sci-fi novels specific that would come to mind to think about, oh, you're going through this human holistic experience. I know a fantasy or sci-fi novel that will take you through that journey. And they are great. They know so many books, the bibliotherapist, but I guess their world is literature. So she was guiding me to literature, which is great, really well written and great books, but a lot for a little manga who hides out in fantasy. So yeah. Battle for the Abyss lucked out being just after Legion, which was superlative. How dare you, Caprice? How dare you? Okay, next we had the Caban Project, which came to light after we watched a animation on the Caban Project, a homemade Warhammer project, and yeah, it introduced me to. Oh, it's just yeah, it's a really lovely little short story by Graham McNeil, who's obviously another of my faves. And yeah, heartbreaking, but great to read this before Mechanicus. So I felt very grateful that my guides in Warhammer, Jim and Ian, were very happy for me to read the Caban Project and get a little bit of insight to some backstory there, We didn't have a song for Battle for the Abyss because Ben Counter didn't want to have an interview. Which is fair enough. And then this is one of my favourite books of my whole life, The Last Unicorn. I reread this a lot. Peter S. Beagle is one of my favourite authors. He's far too busy to be interviewed by me, but I did reach out to him. And we read this in Mirror Manga Book Club, which was really lovely. I've been waiting for this book to arrive from the library for a few months, and it was so worth the wait. It was beautifully written, in perfect prose, and is everything I hoped it would be. I'm going to buy myself a copy of this book as soon as possible and croon softly with delight when it arrives. Well, that review must be from a different book, because I've had 3 or 4 copies of The Last Unicorn ever since I first read it. So God knows what I wrote that about. Robin Hobb is one of my favourite authors, so it's great to see her really enjoying this book. It is a fantasy classic, and it's not girly. It's fantastically written. It's funny. If you like reading The Princess Bride by William Morgenstern, I think you'd really love this book. There's a sense of humour. There's a love story. Oh, there's scary bits. It's fantastic. It's one of my favourite books ever. So Robin Hobb, who's one of my favourite authors, wrote, "This was one of the first satisfying fantasy reads that I found after Lord of the Rings." Yes, agree. I read it when I came home from my first year of college in 1970. For a long time, I felt like I was the only person who'd read this book. Then slowly, the recognition for it began to grow. The movie came out so wondrously tied to the book. And well, it should be. The author wrote the screenplay, and I loved it almost as much as the book. All these years later, it is a pleasure to see it gaining the sort of acclaim it's always deserved. Recommended for a read and a reread and read out loud. Yes, it's that good. Ah, how lovely. Gorgeous, gorgeous book. Then we have The Portable Veblen. I mean, this was just a very bizarre book. Very, very bizarre book. And lots and lots about relationships and damaged people. And, Veblen was a very strange protagonist. The whole thing was weird and wonderful. I stuck with it. I think the ending paid off, but I struggled with this. But, it was written by... Oh, look, my friend Sophia has only given it 3 stars. That's interesting. Yeah, someone's written here, "I was in the mood for quirk and this book delivered. It's about the Queen of Quirk." Yeah, it's quirky AF, but it was too quirky for me. And then we have The Amazing Mechanicum by Graham McNeil. I think we might be able to play this song as well. Oh, sorry if you're getting more music than you would like here. Okay, here we go. So good to you. It's an Emperor special. Let's say huge thanks to you, Graham McNeil. Really, really loved Mechanicum. What about a Warhammer adventure with a bloomin' dragon in it? Yes, please. And anytime we get to speak to Graham McNeil, it's just, yeah. What a brilliant writer. And the whole thing where all Mars was mapped out and he'd, as you were reading about where they were going in Mars, you could reference that on a map of Mars. Dom says that song needs an industrial remix. Lol. Dom, try not to disrespect, but I'm not keen on the Ben Counter one novelist. I made a mirror manga / Emperor no spoilers graphic in Photoshop for you. How can I send it to you? Via Historita Jamaldus. This is interesting. Because I don't have like an email address that I share or anything. I mean, if you're on Twitter or Blue Sky or Instagram, then why don't you add me as a friend and we can message through those apps? I don't know. Sorry, I'm itching a bit. I've also noticed my nose is so itchy because I've got loads of allergies at the moment. I've also noticed my fringe is just doing its own thing today. Fine, you do you, fringe. Okay, let's head back to the old books. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed Mechanicus. dreadful, dreadful villains in there. Some fantastic villains. And yeah, again, loads of Emperor content, which just made me really happy. And the two knights that we read about, again, the Dreadnought Knights were great. So on the Discord, not everybody's on the Discord, Jim. I think there was at one time, if you were a Patreon member, you were on the Discord. Yeah, I love those insights as well. They're great when they spill the insights, aren't they? Um, and then Tales of Heresy. When we come to short story books in the Horus Heresy, it's up to me to write the summary of all of them for the Ian and Mira book clubs, and whoo boy, is that a task! Um, yeah, this was great. It was so chunky. There's so much going on in this book. Yeah, Blood Games by Dan Abnett, where the Custodies were trying to break into their own refuge to check just is it how safe is the Emperor? Wolf at the Door, Space Wolves versus the Eldar, Word Bearers, yuck. So we got some great writers in there. Graham McNeil, Gav Thorpe, James Swallow, Mike Lee, Dan Abnett. Yep. And also, I love reading the short stories because I'm like, I know this and I know that now. Another Warhammer book, Death Worlder by Victoria Hayward, who is one of the most lovely authors I've ever met. Really loves birds as well. Wrote a fantastic, beautiful crystal planet full of disgusting tyrannids and rot. Horrific, bad, 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 bad stuff. But really, if you are a Tyranids fan, this is immense. No mucking about. Victoria is a great writer. Fallen Angels by Mike Lee. Oh, so lovely connecting with Mike Lee. Did I do a song for the amazing Mike Lee? Let's have a quick look. Da, 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 da. I try to do a song for everyone, but we don't always get there. Yes. Ah, yeah, it went a bit dreamy for old Mike Lee. I can see Caprice has said I might have to send you some Eldar books. Well, one of the suggestions for the goal thing, which is the new thing in our chat, is if you get 10 super thanks, then I would have to read 10 books as suggested by the chat, unless they were Night Lord books. Very holiday music, says Alexandra. Yes. Um, Dom, a lot of people complained about the short story anthologies in the series. I didn't know that, but I love how they peppered them in, made a nice change every once in a while. I agree. I really I found this was like a really complicated, this was quite a painful book to read because of the relationships about, friends and brothers who were kind of sundered by basically politics and, Lionel, not Richie, just being a bit of an asshole. Well, they all are, but yeah, it felt very. There was a sense of melancholy at the heart of the book, and of course, Caliban has got loads of dark secrets, and yeah, a lot going on. But I love talking to Mike Lee. He was so generous, and we spoke all the way from his place in Nashville, which was lovely. Wink Poppy Midnight. This is a bit of a weird one. I listened to this on audiobook, and I probably listened to it over like 7 or 8 nights, and yeah, it's like a complicated young adult love story, um, with a bit of a murder mystery. Would I recommend? Probably not to this audience, but it was interesting. Starter Villain by John Scalzi. Again, I think this was a nominee in when I was reading for the Fantasy Society, and this was really, really cool. It was like basically a normal human finds out that his uncle, one of his relatives, has left the whole. Is it well? Oh, how do I say it without spoiling it? His long-lost Uncle Jake dies and leaves the supervillain business, complete with Island Volcano, to Charlie. And it's just a really wicked fun book about what would you do? And one of the things that I loved about this book was that cats could talk. They were part of the Dark Agents. That was lovely. Uncharted Worlds, a game. Yep. Again, I really want to play Shadowrun. Ever since I heard Dan Harmon playing it on Harmontown with Spencer Crittenden as the Dungeon Master. No one that I know really runs Shadowrun, and I'm sure it would let me down if I ever did get to play it. But this was something like a space quest. Scalzi is funny. He did a funny Star Trek parody called Red Shirts about crew members trying not to get killed. Is that a book or is that a skit? Let's add that to the list. Oh, it's already on my want to read. Let's see if... Just while we're all together, just between us, squirrel friends. Let's see if I can share my library life. So this is what I have in my library at present. This is what I'm currently reading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books on the go in my library app. We're going to see if we can find Red Shirts. This is sad. So basically this means they're registering the book, but it's not in any of my libraries. So that's okay. We can wait for another day. Back to Goodreads and my list. There are a couple of good Shadowrun CRPGs if you're interested. What's a CRPG? Computer run playing game? Night Lords are already locked in for 10 subs celebration. I don't know if we're going to get to 10,000 subs. That's a very nice idea, very nice plan, but I'm not sure if that will. There are a couple of... My brother's been playing Shadowrun. He's been enjoying it. Oh, good to hear, Sean. That is grand. Okay. Thank you for those of us staying alongside. We still have 19 people in the chat, so I appreciate it. The Frugal Wizard's Handbook. Okay, don't all shoot me. I'm not really a Brandon Sanderson fan. I enjoyed this. It was interesting in like a fish out of water kind of way. Oh, it's second book in a series. Oh, I loved Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I read last year. Yeah, look, I missed 3 DLR stops on the way home and felt profoundly moved. I'm so surprised that Brandon Sanderson wrote a book that I fell in love with. The illustrations were lovely too. It's saying I read that in April this year. Weird. Why isn't it showing up in my... Who knows? But I was less enamored of this book. This guy, Tim Hicks, on Goodreads, he writes great reviews. Really recommend following that dude. The Elusive Shift. See, this is a reread. I read this book first a while ago because I was interviewing the author, John Peterson, for Weird Science magazine, which I get to write features for sometimes. And yeah, this is just like a really gorgeously researched, well-loved archivist, John Peterson, writing, you know, when I've spoken to John Peterson on his webcam, you just see a whole bookshelf of like probably first editions of things like Chainmail and, you know, Gary Gygax's fanzines. And yeah, it's a great book if you're interested in, you know, how RPGs and D&D came to be. Oh, look, here we have a good run. 1,000 Suns. Oh, Graham McNeil. We've got a lovely track for this as well. Here we go. 1 minute long, apparently. Oh, yay. Yeah, Thousand Suns, wow. Wow. What the old hook of getting us in, really get, all of our, make friends with all the remembrances, show us a beautiful planet of civilized beings that enjoy culture and magic. And what do we get? It's time to get warpy. Time to get warpy. There's a great shark in there swimming around in warp space. And then we get Magnus crying in his temple, and massive fight with the space wolves, destruction of planet, and cool characters. Mayhem and murder ensues, but really, really, really like, oh my gosh, the bit where Magnus is like, Dad, I'm here, and his dad's like, oh, what have you done? Heartbreaking stuff. This is why we come to school, to learn about the heresy. Apologies for singing. The Lightning Hall. So a follow-on from the Amazing Mechanicus. The tale of those two knights that we meet in Mechanicus. A beautiful little short story. Gorgeous. I think Ian and I did a Patreon special for the Lightning Hall, which was very lovely. Oh no, Magnus did a couple things wrong. Poor Magnus. Magnus was trying his best and under bad influences. This is what happens when your parents aren't close to you. Bad influences get in the way and like make shit up. It's rough, dude. It's rough. Just, poor Magnus. He did his best, I believe. Okay, Gideon the Ninth. Gideon the Ninth. This was recommended by a really good friend of mine, Becky, from Black Armada Games. And it is grimdark AF. It's basically like, it's kind of like gothic grimdark. If anyone's read Gormenghast, it's the feeling of fading space dynasties and their houses, not ancestors, different fading space dynasties coming together are gathered in one place. Murder ensues, but it's so grimdark. Also a queer story as well. My friend Becky loves this book so much, and she sent it to me as a gift, and she pushed me to read it, and I kind of put it off a bit because I had so much other stuff to read, and then I really wanted to love it because Becky's amazing, but it was just too much. Dark Souls 2 says, how do you read so many books a year? I'm really anxious, and when I can't sleep, I read late at night, and I don't drive. So when I get trains back and forth from Reading to see my mum, I read all the time. Reading's one of my favourite things to do, so I make time for it. Also, when I was little, I had a bit of a stammer. I had some lessons when I was little. So when I would read a book, I would read ahead, so my brain wouldn't get stuck on a word. But then as I was speaking, I would think to the end of the sentence and try and aim for that. And it really helped me read very, very quickly. Like I remember reading a book called Walkabout in a day at school, maybe 3 or 4 hours. It's a tiny, tiny book, like, and everyone's like, you didn't read that. But I do read very, very quickly. So, and I love reading. Gormenghast, says Caprice. Will, if you don't talk to your children / Primarchs about the warp, someone will. That is a t-shirt, Will. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyway, Gideon the Ninth, highly recommended for Gormenghast vibes. Oh, this was so hard to read as well. Again, this is one of the nominated books that we got to read. This, oh God, really heart-wrenching stuff about immigration and like almost like caste systems and diplomacy and skullduggery and politics. This was a lot. And I remember reading this. This was the book I was reading when my friend Banky took me to Disney. And oh my God. Oh, it was not the book to take to Disney. Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, it's fantastic magical fiction. It's really good. I'm describing it like in such a Kokonami way. Like, I'm not describing it well at all, but yeah, it was a lot. Okay, I better leave that there on that one because it's boggling my brain just thinking about it. Aztec says, I am totally not on social media, also not on Discord. Aztec, have you heard of Imager, which is a website? Hang on. You saw my thinking face and then when my tongue comes out. So this is a website where I believe you can add a post. So you could upload an image here on this website, imager.com/upload, and then you could, how could you share the link? Because it doesn't allow people to share links. Maybe you could put a link in the, not in the chat of this video, but in the comment section of this video. Can you post links in YouTube chats? Let's see, we could go a bit meta, couldn't we? Let's have a look. I love problem solving in the middle of in the middle of a long video where people are probably already dropping off. Why don't we go on a side quest? Why not, people? Okay, so let's have a look at my channel. So here we go. It's going Inception. It's not going to let me comment on my own video, is it? Nope. Noped out. View your channel. Videos. Yeah. So that's what you can do, Aztec. Just go and just go and upload it to Imager and then comment the, oh, Sean, you could put a link in the chat. How did you do that? Clever, Sean. So that's my suggestion, Aztec. But what I will do is I'll try and do a Mirror Manga Grimdark Buddies email address and then we could use that. So I'll try and do that and put it up. John Scalzi, Old Man's War. Oh my gosh, this was so interesting. This was really interesting. It was like, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Cocoon, but basically it's a load of an older generation who's like, my life's over. I'm going to go join the army because they can basically give you a new body and completely regen your body, but you are basically going to be in space battles. And it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I hadn't read anything like it. And it kind of makes sense. If you could put seniors up in space with all their life experience and training, just regenning their whole body, why would you not do that? Really interesting, really fun read. I didn't realize it was a one of incoming. Oh, I'll put a want to read on that. No, that's a 1.5. I don't want to read that. I'll leave it as a read. The Ghost Brigade of the Special Forces. Oh, created from the dead. Interesting. I shall report back on those future books. Sean said it might get held in review, but we'll still see it. Okay, poor Aztec, leaving him to figure stuff out. Then we have Bloodlines by Chris Ray, a Warhammer crime novel. I really enjoyed this. Yeah, I love it. It was very, very detective noir. you know, the whole time I read it, I was feeling the Perry Mason soundtrack in my head. It was all good, all good. Um, so what do I want to do? I want to play the theme song to Bloodlines if I have it. Oh, and Chris Wright was amazing as well. What a lovely, lovely human. Why don't I get to meet humans like authors of grimdark tales in real life? It's forever a mystery to me. Yet really love Bloodlines. Legends and Lattes, cozy D&D fantasy about someone just trying to, just an ex-adventurer trying to open up a coffee shop. But guess what? If you're an ex-adventurer, you can't hang up your sword. Adventure comes to find you. I really, really enjoyed this. Alexandra, any progress on the Warhammer romance line? Not yet, but I am going to a writing retreat in March. Let's see what happens. Stuart Turton, The Last Murder at the End of the World. I have a lot of time for Stuart Turton. He wrote one of my favourite books ever. It's just such a great book. His debut novel was absolutely mind-blowing. It was called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I'd never read anything like it. I really loved it. So I am a huge Stuart Turton fan. The Devil in the Dark Water, his last book, I struggled with. But I thought that this one was clever. And yeah, he's very, very good at twisty mysteries. I was a little disappointed in it, but still, even a little bit disappointing by Stuart Turton is a must read. And then we had, I'm going through my biography era. Britney Spears, The Woman in Me, because I wanted to find out what happened with Justin, obvs. And I did. Martha Wells, Witch King. So Martha writes the Murderbot stuff. This, I wanted to like it so much. It was like Martha Wells writing in a fantasy universe. Let me tell you, the world building on this is immense. It is, it was like being thrust into, it's like waking up in a foreign country and everything is just like, doesn't work. It was like waking up on another planet. It was just too much for me. There was a lot of assumed knowledge, you have to just let go of like, I don't know anything and just let the story flow. And I struggled. I felt like I didn't know what was going on half the time. I couldn't keep up with the characters. I didn't really warm to any of the characters. I was so sad about this because I love Martha Wells. But it's fine. Martha Wells has written other series I do get along with. It was just really sad. I wanted to love this so much. Oh, wow, look, my friend Tim said, I have to think Martha's got a world here where she plans to write a whole bunch of books, because if not, this one's way overbuilt. Yeah, I really struggled with it. I wanted to love it. I still love Martha. We move. Matthew Perry, why did I want to read this? Because I guess I never really thought about Matthew Perry, and then I heard that there was controversy around his death, and then actually I had a friend who used to date him, and I guess I wanted to see if she was mentioned in it. I think she might have been alluded to. Just terribly sad. And yeah, addiction sucks. And whenever I read books about addiction, I remember reading Anthony Kiedis's book, which I think was called Scar Tissue many years ago, or reading Slash's book. And then you're kind of like disappointed because so much of the book is taken up with getting the drugs, using the drugs, hiding the drugs, getting off drugs. And you really want to read about this amazing celebrity existence. Sorry, food for thought, everybody. I normally enjoy biographies. I didn't read that many this year. Do you guys read biographies? Be good to know. Dartharus, on the subject of bloodlines, did you ever play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines? I did with my ex, and I believe it contributed to me breaking up with him. Yep. Just put a full stop there. Purge with Prejudice is a good title for a Warhammer romance. It is. I like that. Uh, I've just scrolled up and Dom's written, "Oh there, word maker. Pretend best friend. Oh hi there, word maker." Dom has also written 10 subs easy. Bag an interview with Bricky. Job done. Who's Bricky? mm What did Will write up the top that I don't want to forget that was a t-shirt? Not the bit about the planet moving. If you don't talk to your children about the warp, someone will. I need to make that t-shirt. It's a truth. University acknowledged that a guard regiment with high morale must be in want of a commissar. Lovely. Okay, The Narrow Road Between Desires. I loved Patrick Rothfuss's famous first novel, The Name of the Wind. When I read it, I was like, oh my God, this is the new Lord of the Rings. Like, this is as good as when I first discovered Lord of the Rings. This guy writes, I loved Quoth, whatever his name is. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it so much. Yes, Quoth is a Mary Sue. I didn't mind. Is it Mary Sue? Yeah, it's Mary Sue. I didn't mind. I loved it. I loved the world building. I object to where the protagonist must be knocked down again and again and again and again and again, because that feels like too much like my real life, but I loved it. And I'm just, we all know, right, that he may never finish this. So it was important to me, for whatever reason, to try and sop up something else that he'd written. The Slow Regard of Silent Things I read. The Narrow Road Between Desires. This was interesting, yeah, because basically one of the characters in Name of the Wind is called Bast and is like a fairy. And Bast is not a good guy by any means, but it was interesting watching him as the main character and just spreading some fairy mischief. And it was good. There was like little bits of tension and things like this. I know a lot of people are fuming with Patrick Rothfuss. So, but I just wish him well. It's hard writing. I'm writing a book at the moment for my work, and because I'm going through a lot of stuff, the words don't flow quickly, and I can imagine my editor is like, what the F is going on with Mira? So I really, really feel for him. It's not like you can wake up every day and you can run out 10,000 words unless you are a Warhammer author, because they're magic. Caprice didn't get on with Name of the Wind. Dartarus, I do wonder how many autobiographies are actually ghostwritten. Is Bricky a YouTuber then? Guess so. Her Majesty's Royal Coven. My company runs a book club, and this was one of the books, and we were so lucky to have Juno Dawson come and present. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. This is like, what if witches lived amongst us? And much of this book was set in Hebden Bridge, which is one of my best friends, Amy, lives. And she's the author of a book that I love called The Outrun. So it was like a perfect paradigm of like witches and magic realism, and this wonderful author that I really admire writing it, and being able to send it to my other friend who's an author that I really admire. Really, really enjoyed this. Recommend highly. Don't be put off by the neon pink cover. Revel in it. Diane Mott Davison, one of my faves. Have I got any of her? I feel like Diane Mott Davison's retired, which I'm very gutted about. Absolutely brilliant writer of cozy culinary murder mysteries. And yeah, this one here is called Killer Pancake. They've all different puns on Catering to Nobody, Dying for Chocolate, The Serial Murders, The Last Suppers, The Main Corpse. So I think, yeah, sense of humour on the right level. Yeah, I am determined to read all the Goldie Bear culinary mysteries which exist, of which there are 17. She finished writing this series in 2013. I get so sad when authors retire. That's why I really like Alexander Smith, Thingamabob. Alexander McCall Smith. He's never going to stop writing. He'll just write till death. I'm quite happy with that. I'm in the middle of trying to find a copy of Crunch Time, and then I'll have 2 more to read. If you like cozy catering dramas, they're the ones for you. Where the Crawdads Sing. I just heard so many people talking about this, and I was like really excited to read it. I was a little bit disappointed because essentially it's a romantic fiction with a bit of a murder mystery. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I wanted to see what everyone else was talking about. Andy Weir, Artemis. Yeah, this was interesting. It was about colonies on the moon. So, of course, when you get colonies, you get, you know, people who live in the upper echelons and then the not so nice parts. This was really, really lovely. A nice bit of like hard sci-fi. This is the same guy who wrote The Martian. So there's very exacting principles around how things work. Yeah, wasn't bad. Wasn't a big fan of The Martian. I found that really boring, but I enjoyed Artemis a bit more. Another Goldie Bear culinary mystery. I'm really going for it now. I'm on a roll. You can see I found a library with loads of the books. And then we had Assassinorum Kingmaker by Robert Rath, which was an Ian and Mira book club read. But Robert is one of Ian's buddies. So, yeah. So we didn't get to talk about it on my channel, but we spoke about it on Ian's channel. So that was very lovely. Very, very good to talk to Robert about that book. Really interesting to learn about the world of assassins. It's interesting to learn about all these clans, and I suppose if you're playing like Warhammer RPGs, you could become a Warhammer assassin. Yeah. Accepting a series is never going to be finished is hard. It's like grieving a death. Steve, I bought this for a friend who lives in Hebden Bridge. Hope they like it. Steve says, sounds like they will. They will. Diane Davison, again, double shot. Really whizzing through these. And then we've got Outlander. Oh! Issues. Issues among issues among issues among issues. It wasn't a bad book. I don't understand how it's so crazy popular. Yeah, it's I found a lot of dull moments and lots of violence and nasty assaults taking place on people's persons. It's very stressful, if I'm quite honest. This is one of my favourite comfort books, What Katie Did. This was first published in January 1872. Oh my god. Yeah. It's a book about this previously happy, carefree individual who suffers, basically becomes an invalid in part of the book and succumbs, to a terrible accident. And Katie, of course, being a girl written in 1872, makes the best of it and learns through suffering. So I was hoping that would give me a bit of solace in my poor me, poor Mira phase, which I go through quite a lot. The Love Prescription. I was very interested in this for, just learning about like connection and humans and insights around attachment, styles and stuff. It was okay. It was interesting. It was just a bit blah, a bit boring reading. Another Diane Mott Davidson. And then we have Translation State. Thank you all so much for staying on so long. I'm just going to continue till I finish because then it will be a complete video. So thanks for hanging out there with me. Dartera says, I loved Kingmaker. I really enjoy the Imperial Knights as a faction, and having the assassins trying to infiltrate them tickled me. Also the names of the family dogs. Oh my god, I love that. Wow. Yeah. Translation State by Anne Leckie. Oh yeah, this is really, 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 really good. Yeah, I mean, this blew my mind. I'm trying to think of a way. It's basically an alien who needs to integrate with humans. But the main character, there's also a main character in there that's very quiet and unassuming that comes to have a part in it. I just really enjoyed this. It was like nothing I'd ever read. I think Anne Leckie is a genius. I've enjoyed other stuff by Anne Leckie. I didn't know it was a series. I'm really bad at this. Imperial Radcha. Um, oh, you can see I've read her ancillary stuffs. Oh, I guess it's all that the universe is the Imperial Radcha. Okay, got it. Got it. I'm slow on the uptake, as you all know. Caprice and Lecky for the win. Loved the ancillary series. Alexandro, just happy to catch a stream, usually at work. The Trials of Lila Dalton. This was very interesting, talking about the trials of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is again a really good murder mystery type thing. Very completely unexpected vibe. Very discomforting. Couldn't put it down. Was like, what's going on the whole time? Really enjoyed it. The Empress of Salt and Fortune. Really, really wanted to love this. It's so a bit of me, but I didn't click with this, which I was disappointed about. Nemesis, more assassins. Absolutely love this. The amazing James Swallow. Let's see, are we missing out some theme songs? Nemesis. As if anyone was going to get Horace. Again, Louis Humanoid with the amazing backing. So yeah, the wonderful James Swallow came to see me at Dragon Meet and signed some books. Famira, thanks for hugs from Jim. Fear to Tread and Flight of the Eisenstein. Come join us on the Eisenstein. Tamira, Viva Garrow, Jim, and Nemesis. So I got these books signed. Tamira for the Emperor. And as an Emperor gal, I was very happy with that. Yeah, really, really enjoyed Nemesis. Loved talking to Ian about it. Just loved the whole thing. And horrible, horrible villain. Jim is really good at writing villains. When the tiger came down the mountain, I'm still trying to get into this. This should so be a bit of me. I just couldn't get into it, but I kept persisting. It's like the whole kind of Arabian Nights, and this book was about that we've got to tell the tigers this story so that the tigers don't eat us and keep them interested. Terry Pratchett Mort. Oh look, I've got a review here. Revisiting a Discworld is always a pleasure, but since the passing of TP, sometimes strangely poignant. The subject matter of Mort and the last few lines of the book. Now there's a moment. Yes, and that was my review from January 2017, and I reread it again this year. I don't know why I gave it just 3 stars. Alana, the First Adventure. We read this with the book club. It was really great to read. This is kind of YA. Doesn't take long to read. I really love medieval fantasies, especially when the protagonist is a magic Mary Sue, and there are like generally good happy endings and good descriptions of food and medieval stuff going on. One of my favourite books. Happily recommend for days. Recommend that one forever. This is another interesting one. This is an end of the world. I've read a lot of the end of the world apocalypse books. Maybe that's just all that's being published nowadays. About a chef, like the last chef at the end of the world. And yeah, interesting. Yep, would recommend. The Warm Hands of Ghosts. Now, Catherine Arden, again, I got to meet at a book club event held by my job. And it was really beautiful. I was kind of dreading it because it's set in a world war, but actually really beautifully written and lots of magic realism going on. Catherine Arden, oof, fantastic writer, great descriptions. Probably loads of you lot would like it because it's set in Flanders and loads of combats going on. And also, Satan is there. Is it Satan? Find out. Terry Pratchett, Night Watch. Oh, this is where Vimes goes back in time. And I wrote in 2016, Time Travel, Vimes, and All the Feels. Oh, I just love it. I should probably do a reread of Terry Pratchett in its complete entirety once I finish the heresy. So see you in 2030. Thank you so much to the 19 people who are still with us. Just giving you some love. We appreciate you hanging out this late. I think we're coming towards the end of this. Jasper Fforde, an amazing quirky writer, has written loads of books, the nursery rhyme stories, and a bunch of great books. This is a book I've been waiting for years. The first book, Shades of Grey, was published in 2009. Red Side Story, like a 15-year wait. I actually think worth it. I honestly really do. And I've read loads of Jasper Fforde. He's so quirky. He's got such an English voice. Swindon, the town of Swindon from the UK, gets mentioned fairly regularly. There used to be a festival. There is a festival for Jasper Fforde held in Swindon. He's a great writer. You can see I've read a bunch of his back catalogue. He also wrote The Last Dragon Slayer. But he has a protagonist who's a detective called Thursday Next, which is really great. And he has a series called the Nursery Crime series. So I recommend Jasper Fforde. I loved the follow-up. Red Side Story I thought was brilliant. The Vampire Diaries, The Awakening. For some godforsaken reason, I got into watching The Vampire Diaries. Don't judge me. It's been a rough month and I've given it a 1-star review. Say no more. Forgive me for my sins. Titanium Noir. How many shades of... What's Jim saying? How many shades of grey, though? All the shades. Oh gosh, yeah, this was so random. So Nick Harkaway, I met again through a book event at my work. No, I didn't. I did. He wrote Nomen, which actually I found quite tough. And that was years and years ago now. The Gone Away World. Why do I feel like I've read that? What's that about? I don't think I have. But this was really interesting. It was about so basically imagine if there were space marines, but they didn't have space marine. They weren't warriors. They just were like the more rich, like the Kardashians, for example, would be like space marine size and more powerful than humans. And if you're rich, you're basically like on all these drugs that makes you grow into like superhuman strength. And it was a murder mystery set with those two different parts of society. It was really interesting. And they're called Titans. So very, very interesting. Yeah, I described that terribly. It's getting late. Just read it. Night Watch was a solid choice for Penguin Classic, said Caprice. Agree. Dolly Arterton. So Dolly Arterton dated one of my friends and also has been a journalist since as long as I can remember. And it's a breakup book. It's a breakup book and it's from the guy's perspective, and he's miserable about having broken up with somebody and his experience of that. And all I could say was I felt very relieved that I was single, because it did bring me back the haunting breakups I've had in the past. Demon Breaker. I can't say too much about this book because Ian and I are going to talk about that on Saturday, and I'm not going to give anything away, but watch this space. And then there we go. I've got another Goldie Bear culinary mystery, Fatally Flaky. I'm listening on audiobook now. I'm desperate to get through this series, and I'm running out of finding the paperbacks on the libraries, so that's why I'm listening. How to Solve Your Own Murder. I should say Goldie Bear is a great detective. I really enjoy her. She's very tiny and she's very protective, and she cooks. There's a recipe at the beginning of every chapter. How to Solve Your Own Murder. Yeah, this was really interesting. Hang on, let me sip. Sip from my baby Yoda cup. This was very interesting. It felt very nostalgic, oldie worldy UK, Britain. Murder mystery. Good. Not my usual fare. Bit of a thriller. But yeah, it was good. This is how you lose the Time War. Now I have to give a shout out to my friend Nick, who actually wrote a game based on this and told me the book was really lovely. So I read the book and it's gorgeous. It's so beautifully written. And I think someone can correct me, but I think it came about with two people writing letters to each other as these agents of a time war. And it's so conceptual and bewildering and beautifully, beautifully, beautifully written. Oh, the words are like a warm bath with a donut. So good. Really gorgeous. Timey-wimey romance. Recommend. And then The First Heretic. My first word-bearer novel. Ah! Fikret Komerku. Lovely Lady Mira. That is how I should always be addressed. Lovely Lady Mira. Will you make a reaction video for the secret level video with the Space Marines? No fear. I'm really curious to see your reaction. I could do a Let's React Fikret. I worry it'd just be me going, what's happening now? Who are these guys? Ian has done an amazing explanation video. The last time I saw it, it'd been up for 2-3 days and it had 30,000 views, so I recommend that. Dartharus, I'm feeling pretty sold on the culinary mysteries. May pick them up in the new year. A word of advice, Dartharus, if you read through like loads in a row, it becomes much of a muchness because obviously it's all quite similar in the setting and the plot and the recipe. So eke it out. The first link is a PNG file. Here's a link with a JPEG of the same no spoilers image. Have you put that up in the comments, Aztec? Because it's not showing in the chat. Let me see if I can look in the admin. Let me see if I can look in the back end, Aztec, and see if there's anything being held that we can push through. Because it did let Sean do the Warhammer.com thing. I'm just looking at out the back. If there's a comment, it will give me a heads up. No, it's not letting me. Community, let me look. Comments. Held. No, I can't see it. I'm sorry. I think if you put it in the comment below the YouTube video that we're on right now, then we could like click in it. Do you know what I mean, Aztec? So the actual comments, not the chat of this video. I'll go take a look. Sorry it's so complicated. I mean, obviously they don't let people pop stuff in there for good reason. I don't know. There are 13 of us watching. Thank you all so much for staying. Oh, it's let me like my own video. That's good. Okay, let's get back to the books because we're so close. We are so close. Da, 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 da. I've got one of my own songs in my head. Can you believe? The ego, the narcissism. So, The First Heretic. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to talk to ADB. He is in contract with Games Workshop. They don't like their authors talking to people outside of the official Games Workshop media. But I will keep trying because I'd love to talk to him. Ugh. Sad days. The Ministry of Time. This was really interesting. It was like MI5 have a special division to look after time travelers and what would happen. Really, really enjoyed it. Strange Beasts. This was why did I read this? It was for the British Fantasy Society book club. And we got to meet the author, Susan J. Morris, on a Zoom. I'm reading another one for book club actually at the moment, which is on my shelf. Oh no, where is... Yes, this is another one I'm reading for British Fantasy Society. Um, yeah, and this was like Dr. Helena Moriarty paired up with Samantha Harker, and obviously all kinds of villains, pop up from that genre. Sherlock Holmes, and why can't I think of any of their names? Anyway, it's set with these characters that are now out of license, so you can write stories about them. Very enjoyable. Orbital, a novel. Wow. Basically, this is like the observations of astronauts circling the Earth. They're in orbit, and there's loads of like personal stories of their interior monologues as they're looking out at the Earth and the stars all around them as they float in space. It felt very trippy. This is like a very visual, thinking, feeling, experiential book. Not a lot happens. It's like a slice of life in space. No big drama, no capsules exploding, no one dies on a spacewalk. Yep. Okay, we're coming to the close. Lucy Foley, The Paris Apartment. Again, I don't know why I'm reading this one. I finished it last night. It's very good. It's the thriller. But, a lot of people will just read these thrillers. Bam, 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 bam. Not for me. Interesting to have a few of them throughout the year, but I don't really enjoy, like, trying to puzzle out. I like trying to puzzle out stuff and being surprised, but yeah, there was something I was very happy with the ending of this. I would recommend it if you like mystery and thriller. I don't know how it ended up in my hands. I'm glad that I did. I read it astonishingly quickly because I was like, what's going to happen? So yeah. Knife skills for beginners. Orlando Murrin, who actually is a celebrity chef who's written a murder book. It was okay. It was good. It was set in a cooking class. I really enjoyed the cooking class stuff. Too much of mysteries unexplained, which is obviously like a lean, like this book is gonna go on in others. And good luck to you, Orlando. The food description sounded yummy. I wanted to eat everything. Yeah, it was another cozy culinary. It was no Goldie Bear though. Wow, the fifth season. Wow, this is an amazing book. Very, very difficult to read. I feel like the allegory around like slavery and subjugation of like species is like strong. Like, you know what you get like when you're reading Octavia Butler, and the allegory is there, and the discomfort of that, which is probably we should welcome to sit with that, is heavy on this book. But it was like amazing world building. It was like really cool, fascinating stuff, and a really interesting system of like magic people and what they could do. They were tied to the actual core of the earth, and yeah, it's a great book. It's a really good book. Yeah, 2015. I don't know how come I haven't read it before. Um, oh yeah, Fatally Flaky. Look out for the ending of this one I wrote. So I've read 82 of 100 books. I'm currently reading my friend Rob's book, which I just want to shout out because anyone who can write a book, yeah, he has written it, and it's an autobiography on mental health. And yeah, unfortunately, he did have an attempt where he didn't want to be with us anymore, and he writes really honestly about that. And all the chapters, there's loads and loads of like song lyrics in there, and chapters and music references, because he is a musician. Has been a musician his whole life. So yeah, that was great. And what else? Well, of course, I'm finishing Prospero Burns. No, I'm not finishing. What am I talking about? I'm so tired. Where is my Dan Abner? Yeah, no, I am finishing Prospero Burns. So that will be 83. I reckon I'm going to have a few days with friends the weekend after Christmas. So I reckon I could probably get up to 90 before 2025 hits. I would love to read 100 books. I don't know if I have time yet, but if I do, I will let you all know. And thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I'm so sorry I dropped the freaking well inspector, but as soon as I find him and scoop him up, we'll have a little mini video on Well Inspector Mini. Thank you for staying with me so long. I think this is one of the longest live streams we've done. We went from like 7 to 9. Oh, Steve, you'll have to share your reading list in the Discord. If people would like to join the Discord, I think if you join the Patreon, we can give you a Discord link, and we'd love to have you with there. We'd love to have you with there. We'd love to have you with us. Please, please, please send me healing vibes. Thank you for the luck extracting the investigator. I'm so embarrassed. Anyway, please send me healthy vibes, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of the week. I'll be seeing a lot of you again in just 4 days on Sunday, and good luck with the Christmas mayhem. Really love you all for like hanging in so long and being here. Sorry about the kerfuffle at the beginning. Maybe I don't know if I should leave the unboxing on. It would just mean this video is never... No one will watch it because they'll start watching it and there'll be an unboxing for ages. Maybe I'll trim it out. Who knows? Anyway, have a lovely rest of your evening and see you all soon. Thanks for hanging out.